Hello and welcome to Something Rhymes with Purple, and this is a really special edition for us because it is our 150th edition, which is quite something. Gyles, hello. You asked me last week for the word for this, didn't you?
I did. I know that the 25th anniversary is a silver one, and then you have is it golden at 50 and diamond at 60, and the Queen is having her platinum jubilee after 70. What would the 150th event be?
It is sesquicentennial.
Ooh.
So sesqui is S-E-S-Q-U-I and then centennial, and sesqui means a half in addition, so it's like another half, if you like. So something that is sesquihoral, do you remember I mentioned this as one of my trios, means lasting an hour and a half. So this is our sesquicentennial show. Well done you.
Well done you. Well done. But most of all, well done the purple people.
Thank you.
Maybe this should be called a purple anniversary. Like, celebrate with a purple heart.
Yeah.
Are there gems that are purple in colour?
There are. I think an amethyst is sort of purple, isn't it?
Well, look, let's create this as an amethyst anniversary.
Okay.
Never mind platinum. It's amethyst, dedicated to the purple people.
That's lovely. And you remember where amethyst comes from?
No.
I don't know whether it actually is remotely pertinent to the purple people, but amethyst goes back to the Greek amathustos, which means not drunken, because of the belief that if you pop one in your wine glass, you won't get intoxicated. I've tried it and can report that it doesn't work. But yes, let's call it the purple edition and the amethyst edition. I love that. That can be our celebratory stone.
It is. And I'm celebrating something to do with words and language this week, picking up on things in the newspaper. We heard the other day that there's a plan to cut down on the number of announcements on public transport, particularly on the trains.
Yes.
And I rather like that. It becomes insufferable to me. They never seem to stop. It depends on the train you're on, of course. But they seem to like the sound of their own voices. And just as you're beginning to concentrate on some work or snooze, there's somebody telling you that the coffee shop has opened or the train is running late, or obviously some information you do need to know. But my real hope is that we're going to lose the 5 most ghastly words in the English language, as far as I'm concerned.
Say it. Sorted.
Exactly.
Sorted. I know, and it sounds like sorted, and I think of this every time. See it, say it, sorted. That's what they should say.
What does it mean? It's ridiculous. See it, say it, sorted. I mean, honestly.
Well, no, it means if you see something suspicious and then you tell somebody about it, it's sorted. That's what it means.
Do you think it is? I mean, honestly. Is that what I've been wondering for years what it meant.
But the thing is, it's stuck in your mind, so it's clearly worked.
Well, it does.
It's an earworm, isn't it?
It is an earworm, and I don't want to hear any more of it. So those are the 5 words I would like to see banned.
Understood. Do you know where tannoy comes from, incidentally?
No, tell me.
It's a contraction of tantalum alloy, so tantalum being a mineral, and tantalum alloy is used as a rectifier in that kind of speaking system. And a rectifier is a device that converts, I've had to look this up, an alternating current into a direct one by allowing a current to flow through it in one direction only. So that's your physics lessons for the day. But tantalum alloy became tannoy.
Tantalum alloy?
Yes.
And it's a contraction of that?
Yes.
Tannoy. Well, let's get off the train and onto the road, because boom, boom, we thought we'd hit the high road for our 150th and talk about roads and words to do with roads. Where does the word road come from for a start?
It's a really interesting one in that it's got lots of siblings that you wouldn't necessarily put together. But road actually is a sibling of road, as in R-O-D-E, and riding out, because, of course, a lot of journeys originally were made on horseback. So if you think of a journey, that goes back to the French journée, meaning a day. And a journey was originally a sort of day's length of riding out on horseback. It's also road related to raid, because a lot of these journeys were actually made as sort of militant attacks against other people. So, so it's an interesting family, that one, but that's where it comes from. Very old word.
So we've hit the road. There's the motorway, the highway. What's the difference between a road and a street and there's so many words for roads, aren't there?
I know. I think we could actually spend probably far too long going on to, because I think so many of these words are just used interchangeably now, aren't they? Whether it's not a motorway, obviously that's got a very specific meaning, but we're talking about roads and streets, etc. I think it's to do with size and quite similar to towns and cities. But I can tell you where pavement comes from, because that's quite nice. That goes back to the Roman pavimentum, which meant a trodden down floor, and it comes from pavere, which of course gave us paving, etc. as well. And it's to be beat or tread down. So it's all about footfall, a pavement. And do you love going? I mean, you've got an electric car now, so I imagine that journeys are actually luxury for you. Are they lovely?
No, it's a nightmare.
Oh.
Because we have what's known as a range fear. The electric car spent most of its life sitting in the garage because it can go, I think, something like 320 miles. But my wife particularly is apprehensive that we're going to get into it, we're going to get lost, we're not going to get back. It does, in fact, tell you, it's got a sort of computer screen that tells you where the nearest charging point is. But so we've got range fear. Also, it's a bit disconcerting. It seems to drive itself. It comes out of the garage on its own. You then get into it and you sit behind the wheel, but it corrects your driving. You're driving along, it thinks you're going too near the side. It pushes, it's a bit frightening, to be honest. So it's either silent, which is a bit eerie, or it's making these corrective sounds as it moves you from one side of the road to the other. I can't say I am loving it, and it's actually making me go far more often by train. So maybe it's doing the right thing. It's driving me more onto public transport.
Yeah, that is a good thing. You're avoiding the tarmac.
Where does tarmac come from?
Tarmac, it's tar, the substance that we know as tar. And then the mac bit, as most people will know, it began as tar macadam because it was named after John Macadam. And he was a surveyor who was the first to advocate using this material. And I love the word tar. Well, I hate tar itself, but I love the word tar because actually originally it was mostly distilled from wood. And so we think it's a relative of the word tree.
Oh.
Just as true, it also comes from tree, which I love. But that's another story.
I love these words that owe their origin to people. There's a word for it, isn't there?
Eponyms, yeah.
Eponyms. And I know we did a program about them once upon a time, a podcast, but we should do another because there's so many of them. I'm thinking of being on the road. When I was a child, we used to call, at a zebra crossing, we used to call the lights at a zebra crossing Belisha beacons. I don't know what they're called now. Those lights that are black and white stripes with an orange thing on the top that flashes.
I think they are still called Belisha beacons, aren't they? And they were named after Leslie Belisha, who was
Leslie Hoare Belisha.
Hoare Belisha. He was a politician, wasn't he?
And I think he was the transport minister in the 1930s when they were introduced.
Oh, that's interesting. Yes, lots of eponyms. You're right. Well, I'm going to move on to cat's eyes, just because, when they say if you could have invented one thing, looking back, if you could claim one thing as your invention, what would it be? It would have to be cat's eyes because A, there are so many of them that you'd probably make a fortune. But also, I mean, how brilliant and just how simple an idea, so simply ingenious, really. Another reason why I love it is because there is a word in English for shining like the eyes of a cat, not just the ones on the road, but the eyes of a real cat. And that is chatoyant, which is just beautiful. Chatoyant from French, obviously. We brought it into English. So glistening like the eyes of a cat.
I mean, do we actually use that word in the English language? It sounds totally French.
It's in the dictionary,
Chatoyant.
Chatoyant.
Chatoyant means your eyes are gleaming like a cat's eyes.
Like a cat's eyes, which is just beautiful. This is, speaking of pronunciation, because I very much doubt that now that it is in English, if it catches on, we will probably mangle it so that it's a little bit easier for our English-speaking tongue. But for you, is it garage or garage?
Garage.
Yeah.
Definitely. As in garage music.
I did used to call it garage music and got laughed out of town for that one. Genuinely, I referred to garage music and have never quite lived it down. But I was taught garage as well, but it's very much a regional thing, isn't it? Maybe a sort of, I don't know, is it still a class thing? I don't know if it's still in the non-U.
I don't know. I assume it's a French word, garage.
It is. It comes from the French garer, meaning to shelter. So it's somebody where you would shelter your car.
And I suppose automobile comes from the French. Auto, as they call a car, auto.
Ultimately from Latin. So mobile, gave us mob as well, and then auto, meaning, automatic. So yes, automobile. And oh my goodness, I mean, there's so many words. You've got trunk roads and artery roads. We should go through some of those. But first of all, do you like service stations?
I love a service station.
Okay.
I spend most of my life, I often tweet pictures of me sitting at a service station. And they all now are exactly the same one. So I don't know where I am, whether I'm near Manchester or near Oxford. Oxford Services is one that I'm often in. Mm-hmm. I don't have a favourite one. They all sort of merge. I used to love The Little Chef. which are not on motorways. They were off sort of A roads.
I remember those.
I think they've gone. I used to love a little chef breakfast.
I know there are some little chefs still around, but this was when I was growing up. If we were ever lucky enough to go out for dinner on a Saturday night when I was little, it would be to the Little Chef, and that was the height of sophistication. And I just remember the pancake stack. It was just unbeatable, really. Well, my favourite service station has to be Gloucester, and I think I'm not alone because I think Gloucester service station was voted the top in the country because it's all to do with being sustainable and it's delicious at the same time. So it all comes, it's like a big farm shop.
Yes.
It's no more expensive, I don't think, than any other service station. Let's face it, they are mostly exorbitant. And it's just gorgeous. It's just got a lovely feel to it.
How long has the word service station been around? Is it an American expression?
Yes, 1910 is the first record of it in the New York Times. And it says the Anderson Carriage Company, maker of the Detroit Electric, has opened a showroom and service stations. I don't think it means quite the same as the one that we think today, but that was the first mention that we have of something to do with cars and stopping in that way. They are, some people absolutely, in fact, I have to say, I think that Lawrence, our brilliant producer, has a secret thing for service stations. One day we'll have to ask him why, but I'm guessing he's been to quite a few. Should we go through some of the expressions that have roads in them?
Please do.
Well, also just talk about things like trunk roads and arteries, because those are all quite interesting in themselves, I think.
Forgive me, first, what's the difference between a motorway and a highway? I think there's going to be a lot of international stuff here. We're going to have purple people from, as it were, across the pond who are going to say a lot of this language to do with cars we're not getting here. I suspect a motorway is the British thing and the highway is the American equivalent.
It is, but of course we used to have highways here as well. In British English, the King's or the Queen's Highway was the public road network, and that was regarded as being under royal protection. So the first highway was actually a specific road regarded as belonging to the monarch, which is quite interesting. And then it became, in the 13th century, a public road. So it was the principal road that formed the usual or most direct route between one town or city and another. So we had that for quite a long time.
Give me the trunk road. Anything to do with elephants and their trunks?
Well, yes, because trunk comes from the Latin truncus, which meant the main stem of a tree. That's why we have tree trunks. And then terrible pun coming, but it branched out in lots of different directions. So the meaning of that main stem gives us the human body, the trunk of the human body, and others with that idea of a central connection, such as the trunk road. And the chest or box, if you've got a trunk or a chest, that arose because early trunks were made out of tree trunks. So trunk road is kind of the main stem, I suppose, and an artery is an important route in a system of roads, so not too dissimilar. And that goes back to a Greek word meaning to raise, because arteries were thought by the ancient Greeks and ancient medics to be air ducts, and they'd found that they didn't contain blood after death. And so they thought that they contained this kind of ethereal fluid. And so they were kind of elevated or raised or sort of loftier than anything else.
I like that. I remember Spaghetti Junction. I'm not sure that it exists in the same way as it used to.
I think it does. I mean, I think it was applied to any really complex, wiggly, multi-level road junction, and it particularly is the one near the M6 for us in Britain, isn't it, near Birmingham? But yeah, because it looks like spaghetti, and junction itself goes back to the Latin jungere, or jungere, Jungere, meaning to join.
Well, look, all roads lead to Rome. Let's now go into the phrases that, as it were, the highway has given us. Give us some of them and their origins, if you can.
Okay, well, all roads lead to Rome, I think, goes back to a French text from the 12th century, but it was based on Latin as well. And it was just because obviously Rome was so important. So it was seen as the sort of main destination for things. So you will find that going back to, it's there in Chaucer, and it's there in a lot of Latin texts before then as well. Get the show on the road. That's a very show busy thing, isn't it? That's American, as you might expect, 1940s.
And is that a circus expression originally, when the circus comes to town and you...
Quite possibly. So the first reference is, that we have so far is from the Daily Texan, which was a newspaper from the 1940s. Let's put the show on the road, Sugarpuss. We're going to a rat race. Oh, goodness. Where else do we get the highway robbery?
Well, that's highwaymen, I assume, who would stop you on the highway, wearing masks, riding horses. your money or your life.
And do you remember that there was a code? It was obviously really, really dark. And there was a code amongst highwaymen that if they met somebody who was a fellow highwayman, in other words, I'm one of you, don't try and hold me up. Their code phrase, or one of them, was "the music's paid." Really obscure. But "the music's paid" meant "I'm one of you, leave me alone."
Oh, I'm going to start using that in a sort of everyday way. When you meet somebody who's actually an ally, they may not realize it, you just sidle up to them and you say, "The music's paid."
The music's paid. It's brilliant,
Great.
that. Do you have any good "why did the chicken cross the road" jokes, by the way?
No. Do you?
Not really, no. The one that I used to tell the kids, which was really awful, is "why did the chicken cross the road?" And it was the "bok, bok, bok, bok" traffic. In other words, block for block. It doesn't really work. They didn't get it either.
No.
Why did the rubber chicken cross the road?
Tell me.
To stretch its legs.
Ooh, I like that.
We ought to have a break, and then I want to tell you what your CB handle might be, because I think we ought to talk a little bit about brilliant truckers.
Please, we must do that. Hit the road, Jack.
That's that brilliant song, isn't it? "Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more, no more, no more." I think it was written by someone called Percy Mayfield, but it was made popular a little bit later by, was it Ray Charles?
Oh, it's the song. I mean, I assumed the phrase was existing already and it was picked up and used in the song. It's the song that made the phrase famous.
I think so, yeah, and it just basically means go away. And it's like "my way or the highway" as well, isn't it? That's another one. That's like, there is no alternative apart from leaving. If you don't accept my things, you can go. "My way or the highway." I quite like that one too. But I promised to look at trucker lingo because I studied this a little bit thanks to some fantastic correspondence on who I found on Twitter, actually, and the lingo that they have. And, I kind of rather romantically thought that they still spoke on their CB radios and they would all have their handles and it would be "smoky this" and "smoky that." And there is a little bit of that left, but actually they're mostly on their mobile phones these days, obviously hands-free. But there's a fantastic website where you can actually find out what your own CB handle would be. So basically you take the initial for your first name and your surname, and then they will tell you what it might be. Shall I tell you?
Okay, tell me.
Godfather Blackbeard.
Oh, I like it. Godfather
So the
Blackbeard.
G gives you Godfather,
Yes.
and then the Brandreth gives you Blackbeard. My one is Switchblade Dart. Not sure about that one. I think we'll go with the Godfather.
They're both extraordinary. Does all that still go on, CB radio? I mean, I felt that was a thing from the 70s.
Yeah, no, I think it is. There's not too much there, but they do still have, lots of fantastic slang words. So I mentioned smoky. So smoky on rubber is a police vehicle. A smoky with ears is police who can tune into your CB radio if it exists. And there's lots of others. They call the AA men or women yellow Erics. I think they need to come up with yellow Ericas as well there, actually. And they just, they have loads. Do you remember there used to be the CB radio truckers would be called the Friends of Charlie Brown? And they'd say, keep the shiny side up and the greasy side down, or keep your nose between the ditches and smoky out of your britches. Catch you on the flip, which is see you on the way back. Rojo, which was okay. And then, oh my goodness, they've got absolutely loads. And I'm delighted, I have to say, in kind of finding out some of these because they were really fun.
You'll be pleased to know that one of my grandchildren has just come in and put a piece of paper in front of me on which I read the following. Why did the chicken cross the playground? To get to the other slide.
Oh, I love that.
And there's another one that he's given me. Why did the chewing gum cross the road? It was stuck to the chicken's foot. Oh, and he's got one more here.
Okay.
Why did the whale cross the ocean? To get to the other tide.
Ooh, this is quite clever.
He and his brother, they're very, very clever. And their dad has now come in with one. He is very clever indeed. This is a mathematical version. Why did the chicken cross the Mobius strip? To get to the same side. Isn't that clever?
That's very complex.
So clever.
God, that's very sophisticated.
That is. Well, I mean, my son is a lawyer, so that explains it.
So I think we've just had a really sort of whistle-stop tour of roads. We should return to them sometime.
Can I just ask, before we leave the roads,
Yes.
you were giving us there the sort of trucker, lorry driver lingo. Where's the origin of lorry and truck? And is one an American word and another a British word? truck
Yeah.
is American, lorry is British?
Yeah, so the truck takes its name from the Latin truckus. So again, we need to go back to the Romans. So this was a Roman wheel, or actually a hoop, that was used as either as a toy or in athletics, much as you might have a hula hoop these days. It was quite a serious thing. And then it evolved to mean a wooden wheel or a roller. And then it came to something that moved on wheels. And I think the first record of the modern version is from Canada. And it reports on an iron-shod war horse that has evolved into the motor car, motor truck, and motorcycle of 1916. So that's where truck comes from. And I don't think that the Americans have lorries. But that one, actually, we're not completely sure where it comes from, except perhaps a dialect word meaning to pull or drag, which would make it quite similar to tractor, which, if you remember, goes back to the Latin trahere, to pull behind. So that's first mentioned in 1838, whereas truck is much, much older.
Are you a good driver?
I'm a very good driver on the motorways because I have driven so many motorways over the years and eaten up so many miles. So I think I'm really safe on the motorways. The one thing I don't enjoy is narrow A or B roads at night. Not very good with those at night time because I find the glare of the lights, no matter which glasses or which glass are in my glasses, I find that really hard. How about you?
Oh, I can't bear driving at night now. It's too terrifying. I used to drive a lot at night, coming back from gigs and things, doing, after dinner speaking or award ceremonies. But I don't anymore. I now stay at the hotel and come back the next day. Or I come back by train, which I had a sort of Damascene moment. Damascene moment, the road to Damascus.
The road to Damascus, yeah.
That's to do with St. Paul, isn't it? It's a story from the Bible. St. Paul has his conversion on the road to Damascus.
And Saul, wasn't it? Saul of Tarsus, who was known as Paul. Yeah, so he was converted to Christianity, wasn't he? Well, he was on his way to persecute Christians, wasn't he? And then he had his conversion. So yeah, that's in the Act of the Apostles. Yeah. I mean, roads just pop up everywhere.
Well, that's good. And if you're an international person and you think, oh my gosh, they only talked about British things, do feel free to put us on the right track. Hey, direct us to a different road. Send us up the highway where you want us to be by contacting us. It's purple@somethingelse.com, something without a G. People have been in touch. Susie, who have we heard from this week?
We have heard from Jenny Oakes.
Hi, love the podcast. Any thoughts on the word carnation? With incarnate, carnal, etc., having logical connections, why is carnation only a flower? Thank you. Jenny Oakes. Bye-bye.
Oh, that's an interesting question, isn't it, Susie? Of course, you say it's only a flower, but as I recall, in Oslo, all the Volvos are rose-coloured. That's because Sweden is a pink carnation. Forgive me, that's because my grandson is here feeding me these jokes. Give a proper answer to that. The word carnation, what is its root and why hasn't it gone further?
Okay, well, its root, and this explains all of those relatives that Jenny mentions there, is the Latin carne, meaning flesh. So we have carnivorous, somebody who eats flesh or meat. We have carnage, which usually means, unfortunately, a lot of dead flesh around. Carnal knowledge, a knowledge of the flesh. We also have carnival, which is the saying goodbye to meat for a little while when you fast, because the carnivals were normally on Mardi Gras. So the link here with the carnation is that carnation itself was originally used to refer to a colour, and it was certain tints of human flesh. So you will find references to carnation, the colour, in lots of beautiful, beautiful paintings and wonderful old art, for example. And then because the carnations were often flesh-coloured, so they took on the name. And of course, there are all sorts of different colours today, but they are linked. It was all to do with the flesh colour of the original flowers.
I like it. Very good. Who else have we heard from?
Well, we have a question from Graham Holtham.
Hello, Susie and Gyles. Hope you're well. This is Graham from County Durham, but I was born and raised in Jarrow, South Tyneside, where it was common to refer to an apple core as a gowk. Don't leave your gowk lying there, what my dad would often say. Now, my wife is from no more than 20 miles away in County Durham, and when I moved here, neither she nor her family had ever heard the word. The same goes for my work colleagues. Only those from Tyneside specifically have ever heard the term. Any ideas where the word comes from, and is it unusual that a word should appear to be unique to a particularly small part of a relatively small region? Thank you very much. I'd be very interested to hear your reply. Thank you, Gyles and Susie.
Well, that's a great question. And Graham introduced me to this as well, because I had never heard of gauk being applied to an apple core. So I looked it up in my dialect dictionaries, and it says, unfortunately, Graham, it says origin unknown. So we don't quite know how it came about. And I'm going to tell you about a different kind of gauk in a minute, but I would just answer your question as to whether it's unusual to have a word that's so localized. And the answer is no, because they estimate that actually British dialect changes within sometimes as little as 30 miles. So you will find different vocabulary and different sort of accent shifts as well within 30 miles, sometimes even less, which is extraordinary. And so not at all unusual. I think it's fantastic that it's still surviving, and keep using it. And hopefully it will survive for a lot longer. But I mentioned the other gauk, and the one that I know, and that is for, again, a dialect word meaning a cuckoo, believe it or not. So you would have, for example, an April Fool in some places is an April gauk, particularly in Northern English and Scottish English. And it was also used for an awkward or foolish person, because a cuckoo has actually got a really bad reputation, unfortunately. It comes from the Old Norse for a cuckoo, but the cuckoo itself gave us cuckold, from the idea of going into someone else's nest and setting up home there. But it also, as I say, gave us lots of slang terms for a fool, or somebody who is a gull, somebody who is, easily duped. So the poor cuckoo does not also give us going cuckoo, in other words, going slightly mad in the olden days. And again, the sort of the idea of being, I think it's to do with its call is so repetitive and so simple that perhaps the bird is simple-minded, and hence it was used for a fool. And that also gave us being kooky. So lots of different ones there, but gauk definitely I'm aware of to mean a cuckoo, but not an apple core. So thank you for introducing me to that one.
It's amazing. Can I also say how I really adored Graham's voice and his accent? Yeah. Fantastic. Now, Susie, I hope this is our 150th episode, which means you've shared with us 450 unusual and interesting words. I hope the next 3 are going to be even more extraordinary for us.
I don't know about extraordinary, but I do love them. I thought today, first of all, because we've been talking about roads and highways and byways, this one might be pertinent, and it's hodophile, H-O-D-O-P-H-I-L-E. Now, you know that a phile means a lover, and the Greek hodos could mean a journey. So it's basically a lover of roads, somebody who loves going on a journey, really. So a hodophile. I quite like that one. And also, if you are a hodophile, then you like nothing more than gadwaddicking. Gadwaddick, such a brilliant word, meaning to go on a jaunt. So it's G-A-D, and, it just gives us the idea of somebody who just gads about. G-A-D, and then W-A-D-D-I-C-K, gadwaddick, to go on a jaunt. And then finally a French one, which I'm pinching. You won't find it yet in the English language, but I've talked once before about the beautiful word retrouvailles. And the retrouvailles is the joy of being reunited with somebody you haven't seen for a long time. And this is an offshoot of that. And it's simply trouvaille without the r at the front. And a trouvaille is something lovely found by chance. And I think if you go off on your road and on your travels, then may you find many trouvailles along the way.
I love it.
So those are my 3, which I hope other people enjoy as much as I do. I just relished those 3. Gyles, do you have a poem for us?
I do have a poem, and I'd wanted to come up with a poem that included an amethyst, but I couldn't find the right poem. So I found a poem that has the word diamond in it, because this isn't our diamond jubilee. It's 2 diamonds and then whatever is 30 years, which I don't quite know what that's pearl, maybe. We must do a whole episode on those anniversaries and why they're called what they are. So much to look forward to. Anyway, this is a poem by Sarah Teasdale, and it's simply called Morning Song. A diamond of a morning waked me an hour too soon. Dawn had taken in the stars and left the faint white moon. Oh, white moon, you are lonely. It is the same with me. But we have the world to roam over. Only the lonely are free.
Oh, wow. That's very deep.
I thought it was quite a thought-provoking poem, actually, because we have such a variety of people listening to us all over the world, and all sorts of people. Some people who may be living alone, some people who may live with great groups of people. I know a lot of people listen to this podcast while walking the dog or jogging. Anyway, wherever you are, thank you for, listening to Something Rhymes with Purple. It's been great fun being with you for 150 episodes. Here's to the next 150.
I agree. Thank you so much for keeping us company. And if you have loved the show, please continue to follow us and recommend us to your friends. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, or, wherever people get their podcasts. And please do recommend us to friends. And also get in touch, because that's the most important bit. We absolutely love hearing from you. You can email purple@somethingelse.com.
Something Rhymes with Purple is a Something Else production. It was produced by Lawrence Bassett and Harriet Wells, with additional production from Chris Skinner, Jen Mistry, Jay Beale, and there's somebody else, isn't there? Oh, goodness gracious me.
He's off on a Gadwaddick.
Is he? It's Gully.
Gully the Gadwaddicker. It's a mouthful.